Hello everybody, today I'm going to do something a little bit different, maybe not that much different, but this video might be a little more off the cuff, a little less scripted and more free form, just because I think this topic is so broad and it doesn't really need to be, totally dialed in and pinpointed for me to get this, point across. So today we're going to be talking about how to analyze music. I analyze tons of songs and bands on this channel, and I hope to do a lot more in the future as well. Really diversify the amount of material I have on this channel. I do tons of analyses, right? The tutorial and analysis videos are a big part of this channel, and they're very in-depth. We go all the way into pretty much every aspect and pick apart, break the song down to basically its core, its coarse adjustment, and its fine adjustments, all the little bits and pieces, at least as much as I can muster up in a single song. But today I'm going to impart some of that knowledge onto you of how to undergo such a task, right? How to go through that process, maybe do it yourself. And as you go through this, you're going to realize that when you're analyzing music, you get better at almost every facet of whether it's playing or ear training. Your ear gets better. You just get more in tune with the music that you listen to. And the next song that you listen to after an analysis, you're going to really be, in tune with. That's the whole thing. And so the main point I'm trying to get across with this video is you can do it too. These in-depth analyses and going into a song and figuring out the chords, figuring out the notes, and essentially understanding it much more and with a level of depth that you probably didn't have prior, or definitely didn't have prior. So before we even talk about how to do this and how to analyze music, I want to talk about the types of analyses that exist. All right, so a vast majority of the analysis that I do on this channel is based within a technical analysis. All right, so that's basically all of the functional parts of the music, the harmony, the melody, the rhythm, the thematic aspects, the conceptual aspects, the structural aspects, all right? The form, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, all that stuff that goes into it. And then eventually all the way down to what are the chords, what are the modes, what kind of progressions are being used, how do you go about utilizing these different progressions, how does the band use this progression, in a regular sense, or how they use it in the context of that particular song. A lot of different things go into it, and that's why the videos are so long, because I just go into every single bit of how something is played. I even go as far as into the literal technicality of it, like what frets you play, where it's played on the guitar, blah blah blah. I don't necessarily do that for all the other instruments because there's just not enough time to do that. All right, now I have to pick and choose my battles here, and the guitar is the main battle on this channel. Okay. So that takes care of one half of the analytical landscape, right? That comes from an objective standpoint, all right? So that's a purely objective look at what a song really is through a technical analysis. That's what I try to do a vast majority on with this channel, is the technical side or the objective side. Something that can't really be refuted or disproved or anything like that. I try to keep it pretty concrete. On the flip side of that, you have what I would call an artistic analysis. And basically what that means is you only look at the artistry behind it. So you don't necessarily have to be a musician to understand the artistic side of something, right? To appreciate the beauty of it and even break it down in a meaningful sense. But what I find here is that a lot of artistic analysis or analyses goes into the direction of conjecture, It goes into the direction of opinion, and a lot of analysis videos that I see on YouTube are really just song reviews, right? Oh man, that's a dope rhythm. Like, I love that. I love the way that they do that. That's an opinion, right? That's not an analysis, right? Although a lot of, reaction videos, they say it's an analysis as well, reaction/analysis. It says that for almost all of them, and they're not analysis videos at all. Maybe they're analyzing themselves to a degree, but that's not a concrete musical analysis. No knock on the content, I'm just saying it is what it is, right? I'm trying to qualify these statements so that we can more easily obtain our goal here, which is to analyze music more effectively and just get better at it in general. So that's basically where an artistic analysis lies, and that includes how does music make you feel, right? Your fee-fees, like I said, your opinions, it's your own feeling of how a song is, right? But it has nothing to do with an actual analysis. That's all I'm saying. So part of this definition is a subjective idea. All right, so the technical analysis, pure objectivity, right? Dare I say even scientific. And artistic analysis is going to fall under the umbrella of the subject or subjectivity. What people feel about something, or, yeah, like how the music impacts them personally, which is fine, right? And even sometimes when you get into the lyrics, digging into certain lines of lyrics, sometimes, people don't really have the correct interpretation of what's going on in the song. And I understand, okay, everybody can interpret things in their own way. Like, yes, you can, but that doesn't mean it's correct, right? That's basically what I'm saying. So, and like I said, I'm not knocking all this stuff, but I just wanted to make it clear that a lot of analysis videos you see are not actually an analysis. So I'm drawing a line right here, basically. So I will include some of the artistic things within my analysis, and even offer some conjecture and opinions, because that, let's face it, that makes it interesting. But that's not really part of the analysis. It's just an offshoot thought that I have, or something like that. And when I make jokes and stuff, obviously that's not analytical. It's more of showing how much of a kookaburra I am, all right? But anyway, let's not get too far off topic here. So those are the two types of analyses that exist. You have a technical analysis, and you have an artistic analysis. Objective and subjective. Now, let's break down the four components of a technical analysis. This is what I go for and I look at when I'm looking at a song, basically. I'm saying looking at too many times. I'm analyzing myself here too as well, learning a lot about myself doing this freeform video. But yeah, let's get into the four basic parts. I've kind of boiled it down to sort of a very simplistic view, maybe even overly simplistic, but just bear with me as we go through this. The first thing that you want to look at when you're analyzing a song is the structure. All right, so you want to perform a structural analysis of the song you're listening to. And basically this means, where are the verses? What are the pre-choruses? What are the choruses, right? What's the order of the song? How do the themes manifest themselves within that order? And generally, how the puzzle pieces fit together, right? So what's the outro? What's the intro? Start on the intro first. That's a big tip right there. Don't start on the outro unless you're crazy like me. Sometimes I do start at the outro because, I don't know, I just feel like working backwards, ass backwards here. But having all of those pieces fit together, no matter what order you put them in, you have to basically get the pieces from front to back. And yeah, you can do it out of order if you want, but try to keep it in order, all right? Start from the beginning. All my videos I start from the beginning, so you might want to do that as well. The other thing that makes up an analysis is the harmonic analysis, which a lot of people really like to come on my videos for that alone, And that's basically the Roman numerals, the figured bass, the chord progressions, and how the music flows throughout the composition, right? So, say we have a chord progression, right? You have a D minor to B flat, major 7 to F to A. So I would analyze that as being a 1, a minor 1, a flat 6, major 7, and a 3 chord or the relative major to the 5 chord, all right, which then comes back to the 1. So that's what I mean by figured bass and by a harmonic analysis, the chord progression. It's as simple as that. Along with that comes probably the next most important thing, and that is a melodic analysis. So what is the melody doing, right? So let's go back to that same progression, right? We have a D minor, but let's say the melody moves up like this. All right, so I would say that's going from flat 3, ascending, coming back, and then descending down to the root. So we're basically using the flat 3rd to move up then down to the root, flat 7, and it's a little, it's almost a little pentatonic sounding at the end there, right? And then let's say on the B flat chord. So there, I'm using the root note of the key, which is D minor, but it's on top of a B flat. So that makes it the major 3rd of that chord, you know what I mean? So it's tracking all of the melodic content as the chords move as well. Extremely important. And, right? And then it helps you understand melody a little bit more when you know kind of what chords you can use with the same notes, you know, common tones. Might go off on a little rant here. Common tones like D on each of those chords. You can have it on top of a D. You can have it on top of a B flat. You can have it on top of a G minor. Hell, you can have it on top of an F and make it an F6 chord or an inverted D minor chord. Whatever. You know, you can do so many different things, and this is stuff that you come across when you're analyzing music. Common tones and commonalities and all that good stuff, right? Let's say you want a C. You have a D on the top, that's the 9th, right? Hell, C sharp. That's a flatted 9th, whatever, you know? Keeping the D on top makes for some interesting ideas and harmonies. But it also helps to understand when other artists do that, right? To know that that sort of thing exists. And as you analyze more music, you become familiar with more harmonies, more melodies, more tricks, right? So it's all tricks and tools of the trade here. And that brings me basically to the final point of what makes a technical analysis. Final point is rhythm, right? The rhythmic analysis, the lowest frequency that there is, the bedrock of it, right? You don't always have, you know, hard percussion going on every single song, but you still have rhythm. There's even meter within free time music, right? There's even a meter that's happening. It might be an incredibly complex meter, but there's a meter nonetheless. Or you have to try and, you know, get a meter within a larger context, right? So yeah, a rhythmic analysis, the drums, right? What are the drums doing, right? Bass drum, snare drum, that's probably the lowest possible rhythmic structure you can have, but you know, you can also have a flute play a certain rhythm, right? You have a flute playing 16th notes, that's kind of crazy. It adds a definite, sort of like a bug flying around your head sound, right? Let's say a flute is playing a chromatic scale, right? Flight of the Bumblebee style. It's a 16th note chromatic scale that creates the sort of illusion of a bug flying around your head. Those are the kind of things I want you to try and listen for. Now, that was a good example of combining the two ideas together. I combined the technical analysis with an artistic analysis, right? I sort of injected my own personal ideas into this. And, you know, the image that it conjured up, or the feeling that it conjured up, right? It can be just as important to do, you know, but it's not necessarily an objective thing. But that's okay. It's fine. It makes it very entertaining at the end of the day, like I said before. So yeah, I mean, here's some basic tips to get you started, right? First thing you should do is listen to the song without any instrument. All right, so you're just listening it from a pure standpoint. The music is hitting your head and you're absorbing all the information for, say, maybe even the first time, right? You want to listen to it from a naive standpoint. Like, all right, I'm wiping my entire mind clean and I'm taking all of it in, right? Just let it wash over you. Don't even really do anything or say anything about it in your mind. Just let it wash over you. The next time you listen to it, try to get a broad overview of what's happening. Some of the themes, motifs, repetitive sections. You know, try to put together the big picture. What's the structure, right? Where are the verses? Where are the choruses? Where are the pre-choruses, right? That's something you really want to do at the very beginning. You know, get a broad understanding. Is there a solo, right? So how does the solo represent itself, right? All these different things. Listen for that sort of thing first, and then you move on to this step, which is when you start doing a harmonic analysis, listen for where the bass note is. All right? First and foremost. Always listen. Even if you have a chord progression like this. So that's A major, E minor, to G, to D. Right? Even if you have that, it's just a regular chord progression. You always have a bass line that's creating the bedrock of the song. All right, and that's the most important thing to try to hear first. All right, it's like, all right, we know the bass is moving like this to these four notes, right? A, E, G, D. And always have the this whole thing like that. So all of those notes together create the bass line, and try to think of the bass line in a sense that's very, 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 very fast, right? So the bass line rhythm might be this, but in your mind, you want to think of it much faster than that, right? So you want to be thinking of it like this, right? A, E, G, D, A, E, G, D, A, E, G, D, A, E, G, D, A, E, G, D. That's how quickly you want to be thinking of these bass lines in your head, right? And that's how the progression can be more easily understood, right? And you start thinking more in terms of chords at the end of the day, which is very important, and it will help your musicianship and will help you grow as a player, for sure. All right, so we have the bass line figured out. Next, we have to figure out what the quality of the chords are. This is where you have to split your mind into two separate things, all right? The upper harmony and the lower harmony, right? So the bass is the bedrock. That's what determines the Roman numeral or the figured bass, right? The A is the one chord. The E minor is, you could say that's a minor 5 chord, right? To G, that's the flat 7. To D, that's the 4 chord, right? And this is kind of more of an advanced thing. And this actually comes from a different scale. We're actually being modal here, but I'm not going to get too far into that. I'm just saying you got to split your mind into two. We have an A major on top of an A, right? Okay, so you have to teach yourself how to hear, or you have to try and get to a point where you can hear different types of chords. You have to think, all right, is this chord major or minor? Obviously, I told you it's major, but hey, it could very well be minor, right? Two completely different worlds, different sounds, major and minor. Need to be able to hear the difference. You can even have augmented chords, right? Or diminished chords. Or seventh chords. Major 7, minor 7, 7, right? Half diminished 7, fully diminished 7, right? you have all these different chord options, right? That really, a good analysis is going to depend on how good your ear is and how you can pick out these different harmonic structures that are happening. But it's basically the chord quality, the type of chord, on top of the bass line. So if you can hear those two things, you got most of this figured out already. All right? So major, minor, augmented, diminished, and what is the bass line doing? Split your brain into two separate factions, basically. And then you can worry about what the voicing is, like, okay, where do you put the flat 7? Where do you put the minor third? Where do you put the flat? You know, don't worry about that later. Try to get the broad overview first, even when it comes to the harmonic analysis, right? So, beyond that point, getting to the melody, right? You want to try and figure out what's going on up top, right? So like I said before with the D minor, well, we have an A major here. We're just going to go back and forth between the 5th and the 6th. And you get a very specific sound, right? Let's do that on every chord. If you do that on the E minor, you get the root to the 9th. If you do it on a G, you get a 6th to the major 7th. If you do it on a D, you get a 9th and the 3rd. So depending on the chord, the melodic structure changes. So look for what the melody is doing up top, on top of the, well, obviously it's on top, but in context with the chords, right? So let's say the melody is going like this. We're basically playing now in an A mixolydian because there's a flatted 7th. So you have to listen for stuff like that as well. The modal structure of the song. What scales are being used? What notes are being highlighted? Right? This could very well be this instead. That's an A major 7 instead of an A7. So it's no longer a mixolydian scale. Alright? It's just regular major. But then when you hit the E minor, you have to go to the G natural. So mode mixture can occur. Depending on how clever the melody is. The melodic content can completely change even the functionality of what the chords are doing, right? So like I said, if you have an A7, well yeah, you know, that's mixolydian. But if you have an A major 7, that's not a mixolydian. So it completely changes the function. The melody up top can change everything harmonically underneath, right? So this is why you do the harmonic analysis first, because that's kind of going to be what it is, the Roman numerals there. But then once you get into the melodic analysis, you can find out a lot more about, you know, what the song is actually doing, what mood is it giving off, and, you know, what colors are being presented here. I like to think of notes and tones as colors, and certain combinations and scales definitely offer either a degree of vibrancy or a degree of darkness, right? Like I said, I'm getting into a more subjective analysis now, and I know it's interesting, but not necessarily analyzing it in a way that's completely meaningful to everybody, right? Because that's just kind of my opinion. But, you know, I digress. So coming back out of that, you know, think about the rhythms too. You know, the harmonic analysis and the rhythmic analysis kind of go, you know, in any order. You can do the harmonic analysis first and then do the rhythmic analysis. Doesn't really matter too much, but that's basically what you got to do, right? In short, figure out what the bass note is, you know. Develop your ear to hear, you know, the different directions that a bass line can go. It can either go up or down. That's literally it. There's two directions when it comes to that. And then think about, okay, what's the upper structure? A minor, A major, E minor, E major, you know, what is the quality of the chord? And then once you put the whole thing together, you get more of an idea of kind of what region you're in, right? So if you have this A major to an E minor, that actually screams, yeah, either mixolydian to like an E Dorian type of idea if you were played in reverse. And then the G to the D, that's kind of like a mixolydian thing too. You know, G to D to A is a flat 7, 4 to 1. That's a mixolydian progression. So you have to learn all of these things first, and then you have to learn how to hear them, and eventually it will manifest itself into a full-blown analysis, you know. And that's basically what I do with every single song. Now, obviously, I'm learning how to play it, you know, as I'm listening to it, but I go through all those steps, you know. I listen to a song just naively, and then I start picking it apart afterwards. The structure always comes first, all right? Structure and harmony, you know, that's paramount. Let's see, what else? What else can I think of for you here? There are other things that you can do. Oh yeah, when you are learning a song, right? It helps not to do it all at once, right? So maybe just take one section at a time. Maybe take the verse part, get the progression down, and, you know, listen to all the components. And, oh, that takes me to another thing. All the different components that make up a specific part. The orchestration, what instruments are being used, right? Duh. Can't believe I forgot to say that all this time. Yeah, what instruments are being used? Do we have harps? Do we have harpsichords? Do we have harps, like harmonica harps? Do we have, you know, guitars? Do we have acoustic guitars, electric guitars? What kind of effects are being used, right? Like, that also goes into the analysis as well. And yeah, all these things coming together to equal one big understanding of music. And I know it's a lot, you know, and I'm kind of simplifying the process, because ear training and learning how to hear all these different chords takes years upon years upon years of just practicing hearing them, practicing classifying them, and all that good stuff. So you gotta really do your due diligence on that front. Let me see, any other tips or hints that I have? I mean, I typically try to, you know, record all the music first, and then I start writing out, you know, an outline of how everything comes together. Because if you can perform it and you record it and play it all and it sounds good, then you got it down. And that helps, you know, immeasurably to do it that way, do it in that order. Oh yeah, one more thing before I go. Having access to any isolated tracks really helps as well. And that could, you know, that really bolsters your analysis. It makes it more interesting. It makes it more complete as well, because there's a lot of things, let's face it, in recordings that you can't necessarily hear. Very hard to hear some of the things that are going on in certain songs. Like, sometimes there's like maybe a triangle part buried somewhere in there, or a tambourine, or some kind of weird percussion instrument that you would have never heard unless you heard the isolated tracks. You know, maybe there's vocal harmonies going on that we don't know about. You know, that's all possible as well. So really, isolated tracks can really help. If you can't get your hands on isolated tracks, try to put it in a DAW, a digital audio workstation, like Pro Tools or something, and open up your plugin for EQ, your equalizer. And if you're looking for the bass part, well, boost the bass, drop the lows, and that bass part will come out a little more, a little more clearly, right? You know, kind of drop out the ranges where the guitar is, right? Which is mostly the mid-range and the high mid-range and all that stuff. It's a very useful way, especially if you can't, it's a useful way to dig into the music a little bit more accurately and get and separate it without the ability to actually separate it, right? Having the individual tracks. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's going to be it. I think I rambled for long enough, but I just wanted to give you that that little tidbit there, because I think it's important to really understand music inside and out,